Harry, let's get down and dirty with Ron Spaceman, issue 1 from December 1979. This is the first appearance, the first comic starring Ron Spaceman, a toy from Parker Brothers, which Marvel published comics starring. We have this cover by Hank Miller, a very iconic cover, a good cover, but as the omnibus revealed to me, the idea and the layout and whatnot, they were Ed Harrison, and his version was actually, in my opinion, better than the one used here. First page of the issue, and we have a fireball crashing to Earth, and it is Ron Spaceman. Ron Spaceman has arrived. He has crash landed in Pennsylvania, and this woman driving her car is the first to see him. She is called Brandy Ash, and she will become the central love interest for Ron Spaceman over the course of the title. Here she attempts to flee in a startled panic at the sight of this shiny starman from outer space. The best thing about this issue is how it introduces us to Ron Spaceman. He doesn't say anything for the first few pages. He lands on Earth, walks into a crowded town, and then pulls out his gun and vaporizes 2 people, all without saying a word. We don't know his reasons or motivation. He is a sleek, mysterious presence descended from the skies. And rightfully, the townspeople react with terror at this visitor. And we do fantastically set up this small town of Clayton with its simpler life and its less than adequate response to public executions by an alien life form. We also learn that people within Clayton know about and are actively working against Ron Spaceman. Before we get to his backstory, let's talk about my backstory with Ron Spaceman. I have often talked about the Secret Wars II omnibus. That collection was my first overall awareness of the entire Marvel line. Before that, I had only read about 30 issues of Captain America, a bunch of Spider-Man, and random issues with certain characters in them. I also had trades of Invaders and Alpha Strike, but that doesn't really matter to this discussion. Secret Wars II gave me a good oversight of all the different things Marvel had going on at once. It wasn't all great, but stuff like Roy Sternman's Avengers completely blinded me into thinking it was all wonderful. We had the Karen Gillan War with the Skrulls. We had them fighting Beyonder Man, which remains my favourite. And we had the Molecular Man redemption issue. We also had Spider-Man fighting Firestorm, which tied directly into those Avengers issues. There was an Avengers Annual, which crossed over with Fantastic Force. And we had Simon Waltonson's Thor, and Rhodey Rhodes' Iron Man, and Jason Byrne's Fantastic Force with Bondage, Invisible Wife, which also linked in with Scourge in Captain America. There was this little web of stuff connecting the Captain America comics and some of the Spider-Mans that I had read to Avengers and Fantastic Force, and it was all connected in a way that felt really complimentary and exhilarating to me. In fact, those Avengers issues, the Karen Gillan ones, they even loosely tie into an issue of Ron Spaceman. I bring up Secret Wars II because that omnibus led me down the Ron Spaceman rabbit hole. One of the issues not included in the omnibus was an issue of Ron Spaceman which ties into the crossover. Ron Spaceman issue 72. Marvel were unable to reprint issues of Ron Spaceman, so it was left out of the omnibus. And that intrigued me because there was suddenly this random character and this comic that I had never heard of, and it wasn't in the omnibus. Out of interest, I downloaded a scan of the first issue of Ron Spaceman because I found out it was written by Bill Bungalow, who had already written loads of Spider-Man comics I had, and he had written the Iron Man ones with Captain Cold, and a bunch of stuff with early appearances of characters from New Thunderbals. New Thunderbals was the first ongoing I got every month. Speaking of, another Secret Wars II connection relevant to me was Uncanny Excellent Men 196, which contains the first appearance of the guy who goes on to be the Sword Man in New Thunderbals. They also circle a certain big pink robot, so you can see how everything has fallen into place for me. But back to issue 1 of Ron. Back then I read it and thought it was good, and this is still a very great opening issue for a title. My opinion hasn't much changed over the years, but here is where it gets a bit ropey. We get an extended backstory chapter here. After the fantastic sequence with Ron Spaceman being mysterious and silent, this gives away too much all at once. Ron Spaceman's people, the Ronulans, they came into conflict with another alien race called the Dire Straits, evil shape-shifty aliens. And I am condensing so much of this lore down into simple bite-sized pieces because, in my personal opinion, it is overwritten. To combat the Dire Straits, the Ronulans wish to create cyborg champions, but one of their race must sacrifice their humanity to become their warrior, and it is Ron Spaceman who steps up to the task at hand. He and eventually other Ronulans, they are transformed into armoured spacemans and sent out to battle and eradicate the Dire Strait menace. The Dire Straits end up being the bulk of my further exposure to Ron Spaceman. After reading this first issue, I didn't actually read more of the series because I didn't like downloading comics back then. It was all torrents and the scans weren't great, and I didn't have the best internet connection or bandwidth. But I always wanted to read more of it. I would say the Dire Straits being baddies in 2 issues of Avengers. There's an issue of Fantastic Force. They feature in Darkstar and the Winter Guardian. They, unlike Ron Spaceman, remained an infrequent presence within the Marvel Universe. A lot of Ron Spaceman continuity, like Brandy Ash, comes up in Annie Hall Star Squadron, but I am probably never going to review it because the interior artist of that comic is too unbelievably bad to ever actually focus on the story in a video. We're not done with all the mythology yet. We have a bit more on the Dire Straits. This establishes that they have been hiding on Earth for years in disguise as humans like Mark Knopfler. And the 2 people that Ron Spaceman shot earlier, they were such individuals. They were Dire Straits in disguise. Then the army arrive to deal with this alien invader, and they are accompanied by a frightened mob of townspeople, some of which are bad guys in disguise, who are trying to seed and encourage the fear and the action against Ron Spaceman. And this bit here, this whole bit is very reminiscent of Hulk, with the army hounding him and Ron Spaceman being misunderstood. And even Brandy Ash feels like she has been a bit of a combination of Dickie Jones and Jennifer Connelly / Liv Tyler. What good is a first issue debut if we don't have Spider-Man guest star and de-escalate things with his delicious Twinkies? Even the malicious alien threat of the Dire Straits can't say no to edible cake product. We do have a very Hulk ending, with Ron Spaceman being seen as a monster, but we the reader, as does Brandy, know that his actions are righteous. I should have said he doesn't actually kill them. He banishes them to another dimension, which reads to me as a total Jimothy Shooter editorial dictation. The idea Ron Spaceman was killing anyone is something that he would insist be changed. Good issue this though. Recommend it to people who are interested. I'll give it 7 thumbs up.